Well, good morning, everyone. This is Board of County Commission meeting on Wednesday, May 18th, 2016. Thank you for being here this morning. My name is Jim Howell, and we've got a really interesting meeting planned again today. And so I'm glad you're here. If you're watching on TV or on live streaming or on YouTube, it's good to have you be a part of our meeting this morning. We have a lot of things to talk about. We have a couple of proclamations and some business with the Law Enforcement Training Center again this morning. So we'll finalize that decision this morning, I believe. So with that, I'd like to call to order the Board of Sedgwick County Commissioners for the date of Wednesday, May 18th, 2016. And with that, I'd like to ask Madam Clerk for the first item, please.
Invocation to be led by Pastor Ben Ford, Pathway Church. Please remain standing for the flag salute.
Bow with me. Father God, we just thank you so much for the opportunity this morning to be able to be here. Lord, we thank you for the things that are going on in Wichita and surrounding area. God, the way that you are just working and moving. And Lord, we just ask that you would just continue to bless Wichita. God, that we would continue to see great things happen, great community taking place as well. Lord, we just pray for your blessing over this meeting as well today, that just your wisdom would be seen in the room. Lord, we pray all this in your Son, Jesus Christ's name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, thank you, Pastor Ford, for the prayer this morning. All right. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Roll call. Commissioner Unruh.
Present.
Commissioner Norton.
Present.
Commissioner Peterjohn.
Present.
Commissioner Ranzau.
Present.
Chairman Howell.
Present. All right, Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Public information announcements.
Good morning, Commissioners. Kate Flavin, your Interim Public Information Officer. And at this time, I would like to bring up our Election Commissioner, Tabitha Lehman, to the podium, to talk to you about the upcoming elections.
Good morning, Commissioners. I just wanted to take the opportunity to do a little plug and make sure everybody is aware that we are still looking for election workers. As you can see, this amazing flyer that the department that we call in our office formerly known as Communications, because I'm sorry, I can't remember what it's called now, so we call it formerly known as Communications, designed for us. And we've gotten rave reviews on this flyer, so we are very grateful for their help. But we just want to bring this to the forefront and make sure people know we are still looking for several hundred workers for November. I've heard that retired plumbers would make very good workers. I just figured I'd throw that one right out there. Anyway, so if anyone is interested, please call our office or visit our website and let us know, and we'd be more than happy to get you hooked up to work. So,
Well, thank you for that. I was just curious, how is your hiring for the August election looking so far?
August, we only have about 20 open positions, and that's including trying to get enough backup in case people cancel last minute. So we're looking fairly good for August. It's November, when school's in session and when teachers are at work, that we start having more trouble. And of course, we need a lot more people. So
I understand. Well, I understand a lot of people might be interested in both elections, so I guess they should still use the information even for the August election.
Absolutely. And, we do still have some openings for working early voting, and we are still looking for people to hire in our office as well to offset. So if somebody wants to come work for us for a couple of months, certainly let us know.
Can you talk about the hours and how much they get paid once again?
Sure. For Election Day, it's from 4:45 in the morning until polls close and everything's done and the results are back to our office, which in November will probably be later. And it's $120 for the day for a normal election worker, $150 for the supervising judge. The supervising judge also gets paid mileage per state statute. And then if they want to work early voting, that's about $60 a day that they work. But they do have to work every single day, but they can't pick and choose which days they work. So if they work in our office, then that's a set salary. And can't remember that off the top of my head. I apologize, but that goes through HR. And we are looking, obviously, for quite a bit of extra staff for our office as well.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for the information. Do you have anything? Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much for that.
Thank you. And I'd also like to remind everyone that this information is also on our website, www.sedgwickcounty.org. And I have one final comment, Commissioners. We have selected our next evening meeting location. So mark your calendars for Monday evening, June 13th. We'll be at the Park City City Hall. Meeting will begin at 6:30, and there will be a meet and greet before that at 6 o'clock. And this will replace our regular scheduled meeting on June 15th. So meeting Monday evening, June 13th, and no meeting on June 15th. With that, I have nothing else for you.
That's great. Well, thank you so much for the information on there. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Public agenda.
Do we have anybody signed up this morning to speak?
No, we did
All right, we have no one signed up to speak, so just a reminder, if you have interest in talking to the County Commission generally, this is always an opportunity for anyone to come to our meetings and address the commissioners generally on any topic. We also recognize people during different business items during the agenda itself, so lots of opportunities for people to talk to commissioners. All right, Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Proclamations. Item A, proclamation declaring Elephant Appreciation Week.
All right, Commissioners, I do have a proclamation that I would like to read. It says, whereas 96 elephants are killed in Africa every day, and whereas a leading motivation for the killing of elephants is a global desire for all things ivory, and perhaps are those who may not know about the true cost of these products. And whereas we cannot be the generation that allows elephants to disappear, it's up to us to ensure that elephants have a bright future. We must be the ones who inspire discovery, appreciation, and respect for elephants. And whereas the Sedgwick County Zoo is now home to 7 intelligent and majestic African elephants. Our community has always loved elephants and welcomed our newest arrivals with open arms. And whereas the Sedgwick County Zoo exhibit for elephants of the Zambezi River Valley will celebrate its grand opening this Memorial Day weekend. And whereas the elephants of the Zambezi River Valley will be the 3rd largest elephant exhibit in the United States and features the world's largest elephant pool. It will also have a new elephant barn that will be one of the premier holding buildings for elephants in the country. Now therefore be it resolved that I, Jim Howell, Chairman of the Board of Sedgwick County Commissioners, do hereby proclaim May 22 to 28, 2016 as Elephant Appreciation Week in Sedgwick County, and I call this observance to the attention of all our citizens. All right. What's the will of the Commissioners?
Move we adopt the proclamation.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. No discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion passes. And I do have, I believe in the audience, Steve Hulick is here to receive this. I'd like to invite you to say a couple of things, just for a couple moments, please. Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Steve Hulick. I'm a trustee of the Zoological Society and am also serving this year as treasurer of the Society. Standing in this morning for our president, Mark DeVries, who had a prior business commitment and could not attend. On behalf of the Society, thank you very much for that most gracious proclamation. We are very pleased that the new 6 elephants are making their new home at the Sedgwick County Zoo. They seem to be doing better and better as each day goes by. 2016 has started out a little unusually for the Society. As I think you know, normally we lose money in the months of January, February, and March because it's winter, it's cold, and not many people come to the zoo. Actually, that has changed dramatically in the first 3 months. Through March of 16, we are actually 15,000 people ahead attendance-wise, which has never happened at this point in time. We certainly hope that trend continues, but we all know how hot it gets in the summertime, and I guess we'll just see what happens as the warm weather months get here. Thank you again for the proclamation and for your partnership over the years. Mark?
I just wanted to thank you all for your support and tell you that the elephants are doing great. We have 5 together. Our next move is probably to move Stephanie, our original elephant, in with the 5 younger ones shortly after the exhibit opens on Memorial Day weekend. And we actually think she's going to be the boss lady down there now from everything we can tell from behavior. But it's the elephants have been fearless. They figured out, you know, they'd never seen a building, never seen a fan, never seen magic doors, never seen automatic waters, and they actually settled in within 24 to 48 hours. Took Stephanie 3 weeks, but they are just fearless, and it's really been exciting to watch for all of us at the zoo, and look forward to showing you the exhibit here later today.
I have one question for you. So it says Memorial Day weekend. Is that going to be Saturday or Sunday? What's the date exactly?
It actually starts at 10 o'clock with the ribbon cutting, and we'll open all entranceways into the exhibit at that time, and we expect a gigantic weekend, and we're inviting the whole community to come out and enjoy their Sedgwick County Zoo.
And 10 o'clock a.m. on Friday.
Friday May
morning.
27th.
And I just want to give you my opinion real quickly. I was great. You guys were gracious to allow me to come out there and see this place once already, and actually a couple times already. And I would just say this is a 5-star hotel for elephants. Elephants in the wild, I'm sure, have to fear for their lives and have to figure out a way to survive, finding water and food. And what we've given them here is a life of luxury, so to speak. Water and food, all they want, soft grass under their feet, and all it goes. And so it's a pretty neat place, and I'm glad we've got it done. So
We're very excited. In fact, on June 9th, we have 35 zoo directors coming from throughout the nation to come see this exhibit specifically. So we're excited to show it off to our professional colleagues also. So
we have some other comments. Commissioner Unruh?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, Mark and Steve, I just want you to extend our appreciation to the Zoological Society for their perseverance and dedication into bringing us to this point. You know, this is a tremendous asset for our community, and as you've already experienced, as the rest of us have, the community is really excited for the opening of this elephant exhibit, and it'll be just another great asset for the Sedgwick County Zoo, which already was, leading tourist attraction in our state. So good job to you all for persevering through all the difficulties it took to get to this point. And so we're proud of you all, but we're also proud of the facilities. And as we get to know those elephants, we'll be proud of them also. But thank you all very much.
thank you.
Commissioner Peterjohn?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had the opportunity, along with my daughter, during the members' night that she had last week, to go out and visit the facility, and it is absolutely outstanding. Let me ask you, I was told that each elephant's eating now about 300 pounds per day of foliage. I mean, that's over a ton a day. I was just curious if that's going to continue, increase, or diminish, or are we in for it's an elephant-sized world we're living in now?
Well, I know that it varies every day, but we have actually worked out some deals with some tree cutting companies, landscape companies that are delivering fresh cut stuff every single day to the zoo, and we have some areas in the zoo and other places that we'll continue to harvest. But basically, they're browsers, and this is an important part of their diet, and we want to feed them as natural as possible. So they're gaining weight every week. We weigh them. The kids stepped on the scale the very first time we opened the door for them to go into the thing. It took Stephanie 6 times to give you an idea. I mean, they really are fearless, but they love eating that fresh young bark and the leaves, and it's all about being an elephant. They love that stuff. So.
Well, how much weight have they gained since they've been here?
Each one's gained different amounts, and we're watching that we don't let them gain too fast. I can tell you all of them have put on several hundred pounds, and they all came in slightly underweight. They eat huge volumes of low-quality food in the wild, and with 3 years of a drought in Swaziland, that low quality was even lower quality. So we're I don't want to use the word fattening them up, but we're putting a lot of weight on them and get them all toned and muscled up real well. So to give you an idea, when you look at Samoya, the big female, she's even taller than Stephanie, and she's 2,000 pounds lighter. She's a ballerina in the elephant world, and Stephanie's a little on the heavy side, but we're not going to put her on a diet at this age in her life.
And what sort of treats are they enjoying now?
Well, we're trying to feed them natural foods. They're getting special treats occasionally, alfalfa cubes and yams and apples and carrots. We're not trying to put too much sugar to them. That's not good for their teeth. But they actually enjoy the leafy branches we're getting from the landscape companies as much as anything.
Thank you.
All right, Commissioner Norton?
Well, I have to tell you, Facebook is lit up. My Facebook is lit up with elephants frolicking at our zoo, and I'm glad to see that because I was tired of looking at what people ate last night, and cats with their heads stuck in something. But I think the public it's resonating with them because I've seen so much social media about. We stopped by, we saw it, and they filmed it, and it's gone viral in our community as far as I'm concerned. And we haven't even opened it yet. And I think once the public gets to experience this and see what we've done in Sedgwick County, Kansas, which is going to change the dynamic in the world for elephants being taken care of. Certainly Dallas and Omaha participated in that. But I think we've done something really spectacular, not only for our community, but for the preservation and breeding of elephants worldwide. And I'm proud that that's centered right here in Kansas, USA. We're very proud that we went after that. One of the things I put on my bucket list as a commissioner almost 16 years ago was expansion at the zoo. Because we had a great zoo, but we had other things that we could do. And it's interesting that it came around to being the elephant exhibit. Now we've got Pride of the Plains and the orangutan exhibit and Penguin Cove and Pride of the Plains, all of those things. But this is really that signature, spectacular thing that Sedgwick County really participated in. And I'm really proud that we've moved this along and that the public is going to be wowed by what they get to see. And that very few people will ever get to see elephants in a herd like this moving around and enjoying their lives. So thank you very much for your hard work, Mark. Thank the Board of Trustees. And I'm very proud that Sedgwick County stepped up and participated at that level they did too. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Commissioner Unruh.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Marcus had one last question. You talked a lot about the female elephants. You hadn't said much about the male. What's
Titan's doing great. He's actually in with the 4 younger females, and at nighttime they sort of take over the sand pile as their big pillow and put him off to the side. But he's doing great, and he's showing some early indications of what it's all about getting his trunk on top of the back and getting his feet up, and we know that he has the right instincts and showing the right behaviors for his age, and so we expect great things out of him.
Okay, thank you.
Well, again, thank you so much for everything you said this morning. All right, Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Item B, proclamation declaring Emergency Medical Services Week.
Commissioners, I do have another proclamation to read, and it says, whereas emergency medical services is a vital public service, and whereas the dedicated paramedics and emergency medical technicians of Sedgwick County Emergency Medical Services are committed to providing exemplary medical care and ambulance transportation to the citizens of Sedgwick County. And whereas Sedgwick County EMS is ready to provide life-saving care to those in need 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And whereas access to quality emergency health care dramatically improves the survival and recovery rate of those who experience sudden illness or injury. And whereas the emergency medical services system consists of emergency physicians, emergency nurses, emergency medical technicians, paramedics, firefighters, educators, administrators, and other healthcare professionals. And whereas the members of the emergency medical service teams, whether career or volunteer, engage in thousands of hours of specialized training and continuing education to enhance their life-saving skills. And whereas it is appropriate to recognize the value and accomplishments of emergency medical service providers by designating Emergency Medical Services Week. Now therefore be it resolved that I, Jim Howell, Chairman of the Board of Sedgwick County Commissioners, do hereby proclaim week of May 15th through the 21st, 2016 as Emergency Medical Services Week. The 2016 theme for EMS Week is Called to Care. I encourage the community to observe this week with appropriate programs, ceremonies, and activities. Commissioners, what's the will of the board?
I move we adopt the proclamation.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Seeing no discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion passes. Thank you. And I'd like to recognize our Director of EMS, Scott Hadley.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Thank you for this proclamation. On behalf of all of us with EMS, we really appreciate this recognition. I know the folks out there, the men and women that work for our organization, certainly don't receive the praise and recognition I believe they deserve. They take care of one patient at a time, approaching almost 60,000 calls for care in 2016 as we project. They're out there each and every day, no matter what the weather, working in challenging environments. And I am very privileged and honored to be a part of Sedgwick County EMS and work alongside those professional men and women that we have in our organization. So I wanted to thank you for your ongoing support of EMS and our men and women out there that sacrifice a lot each and every day. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Director Hadley, for those remarks. And I'd like to say it's very appropriate we recognize these professionals in our community. They provide a very critical service to the public that we serve. So thank you for everything. Commissioner Peter John?
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree with your comments. I'm delighted to support the resolution. Wanted to also point out the fact that we have folks in our EMS and the recent emergency and horrible events that occurred up in Heston.
Yes.
Sedgwick County EMS was involved,
Yes.
and we had one individual in particular, and I'm absolutely delighted that it reflects so well on Sedgwick County EMS, and wanted to mention that since it goes beyond the scope of the resolution we just adopted. But Scott, thank you, and kudos to all your folks. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, Scott, it's clear that you're very proud of your team and what they do for our community, and we just want to reinforce that and say we also are proud of the work they do and are happy to honor them in this way.
Thank you.
All right. See no further comments. So I just want to say thank you. Final comment, just appreciate all of EMS. And again, I pointed this out the other day, and I want to just say it one more time. We have a very robust system of professionals providing this care, and obviously includes our ambulances and the paramedics and the technicians that are on those vehicles, but it also includes our firefighters. Yes. I don't want to forget them. I'd like to recognize the fact that they're part of our system as well.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, again, thank you for everything, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Appointments. Item C, resolution nominating Rob Benton to be appointed to the Wichita Airport Advisory Board.
Mr. Chairman, Eric Yost, County Councilor. This resolution, item C, is a resolution nominating Rob Benton to the Airport Advisory Board. He would be the nomination of Commissioner RANZAU. The paperwork appears to be in order, and I would urge adoption of the resolution.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move that we adopt the resolution, and at the same time, I'd like to thank Mr. Benton for his willingness to serve on this advisory board.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. See no discussion. Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Commissioner Unruh.
Aye.
Commissioner Norton.
Aye.
Commissioner Peterjohn.
Aye.
Commissioner Ranzau.
Aye.
Chairman Howell.
Aye. I don't believe he's here this morning, is he? No. Okay, well, we'll take care of paperwork later on. And Madam Clerk, next item, please.
New business. Item D, public hearing to consider petitions from landowners KRIS and RITA Carpenter for the inclusion of their properties within the boundaries of Sedgwick County Fire District Number 1.
Good morning, Commissioners. Tyler Roush with the County Counselor's Office. We have a couple petitions, the first being item D. I'm pulling up a map on the overhead. This is 2 parcels of land between Colwich and Mays, I guess, a little bit south of Colwich. They're owned by the same couple, and they would like to be included into the fire district. Just so everybody's aware, if you choose to adopt this resolution, it would add approximately $450 in tax levies to the for the fire service being provided by Fire District Number 1.
All right. Thank you for that. Commissioner Peterjohn?
Now, these 2 parcels are located in Union Township. Is that correct?
I believe so.
Yeah. Well, it's an interesting situation because from looking at the map, we've got areas in there that are and are not part of the fire district, and Colwich, of course, has their own volunteers and has a relationship with Union Township. So I think that makes for an explanation why we've got the map in front of us that looks the way it does, with parcels included and then other parcels that aren't part of it. Thank you.
All right. I just want to make one comment, I guess. That is, I appreciate the, let me just say, the Colwich, I guess, has a volunteer fire department. And
correct.
So, to this township, it sounds like the primary responders will be the volunteer firefighters. And do we know if they receive a call, they've got to respond to the station to get the equipment and then go to the fire? They're not at the station most of the time.
Well, this couple is petitioning to be part of the fire district number 1.
I understand.
So the next resolution is for the exclusion. I don't know how Colwich staffs their fire department, if they have somebody on call or not. I do know that Colwich does levy a tax specifically for fire service. It is less than the Sedgwick County Fire District number 1 tax, but they do levy a tax. It is a volunteer department, as you mentioned. As far as their operations go, though, I don't have any idea as far as if they have somebody on call all the time or not.
Well, I'll certainly be supporting this item this morning. The next item I may have some consternation with, but we'll talk about that in just a minute. Commissioner Peter-John?
No, I know we've got to open the public hearing, so I'm trying to jump ahead.
Right. Thank you.
I didn't mean to.
Let me go ahead and move forward with that. Let's go ahead and open up the public hearing to accept comments from anyone who would like to speak to this item. Proponents or opponents, either way. All right. Last call. All right, then I guess we will close the public hearing. And Commissioner Peter-John.
Well, since we've completed the public hearing, I'm going to make a motion that we adopt the resolution and instruct the county clerk to publish the same according to Kansas statutes.
Very good.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Commissioner Unruh.
Aye.
Commissioner Norton.
Aye.
Commissioner Peter-John.
Aye.
Commissioner Ranzau.
Aye.
Chairman Howell.
Aye. All right, Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Item E, public hearing to consider the petition from landowner Douglas Weninger for the exclusion of his property from the boundaries of the Sedgwick County Fire District number 1.
Thank you, Commissioners. This is a petition to be excluded from the fire district. Again, this house is similarly situated. This is actually between Colwich and Mays, to the east of Colwich, is the yellow parcel on the map. As you can see, it is within the 3-mile buffer zone of Colwich and Mays, as well as part of Wichita, and it is in the gray area, which is currently serviced by Colwich Volunteer Fire Department. The red area is the current boundaries of Fire District number 1. Should you adopt this resolution, it would be approximately $389.80 that would come off the tax rolls from Sedgwick County, and the Weningers would be assessed whatever the mill levy is for the Colwich Volunteer Fire District.
Very good. All right. Let's go ahead and we'll open the public hearing and accept comments from the public on this item. All right. Seeing none, I guess we will close the public hearing and we'll move on to discussion. Commissioner Peter-John.
Well, Mr. Chairman, my comments on this item are basically to follow up, and I don't want to repeat what I said on the previous item because basically it's the same. We've got folks here who want to withdraw from the fire district. They would then rely upon fire coverage that I understand is being provided by the Colwich volunteers in an arrangement that exists between Union Township and the city of Colwich Volunteer Fire Department. So I will make a motion that we do this. We've done this in the past, although not recently, and it goes to one of the challenges we face with the fire district. And as you can see from looking at the map with the number of spots where people have asked to be included, there's a mixture. I would point out to my colleagues that probably the largest portion of the tax base in Union Township is the Westar facility, which is kind of that inverted L shape just east of the city of Colwich, and having that in an agreement that they have with the fire district is probably the most significant parcel in that area in terms of the tax base that is part of the fire district. So I will make a motion that we adopt the resolution and instruct the county clerk to publish the same according to Kansas statutes.
Second.
A motion and a second. I'd like to just ask you to, Commissioner Peter-John, can you remind me again, where's the nearest fire station in the fire district number 1?
Well, the nearest fire station in fire district number 1 is a little bit further east on 53rd Street. It was opened, and maybe one of the other commissioners who's been on the bench longer than me can give more details about it, but it's on the south side of 53rd Street within the city boundaries of the city of Mays, so it's actually in Commissioner RANZAU'S district. The two parcels we're talking about here are both located in my county commission district, but it's very close to the border between District 3 and District 4. And I'd roughly estimate that the parcel we're looking at here is somewhere between a mile or a mile and a half west of the Fire District number 1 station that's located on the south side of 53rd Street. And I wish someone with the Fire District was here because they could tell me what that fire station number is. All I can say is it's in the 30s, but it's basically the Mays Fire District number 1 station.
All right. So I guess my thought is, again, if I look at this map, it's a checkerboard. We have people who are inside the fire district and people who are outside the fire district. And I guess if there was a fire at this parcel, this residence, do we have automatic aid agreement with Colwich?
We do have an aid agreement, yes.
Would we automatically respond, or we're on call?
I don't have the aid agreement in front of me.
Okay, I would presume that we would probably get there before a volunteer fire department could get there. That's assuming they're not manning the station. If they have to respond from their location to the station to get the equipment and then go out to the call, it would seem obvious to me that the first responders would actually be Sedgwick County Fire District number 1. And I guess it seems like we're maintaining a level of response to cover an area that is not financially funding the district. So again, I have a bit of a problem with the checkerboard nature of this. The people that are in or out of the district, it makes it where everyone has to maintain equipment to respond, and it's really not ideal for us to have duplication of services. But I understand why they probably would like to be out of the district. I mean, so what, 18.3 mils of tax, and so this might impact their homeowners insurance. I'm sure they probably checked this out, whether this is good or bad for them. So on one side, I do want to let people make choices for themselves. I get that side of this, but I also have concerns for the fire district. Commissioner Peterjohn?
Well, I was going to point out that this is more than just a problem in this one area. There's a number of other places in the county where people opt in and opt out of the fire district depending upon the tax and what alternate fire coverage they can receive. The question I can't answer, and I would be intrigued to know, is how their insurance might change in terms of their property and casualty insurance on any buildings or home they have on that parcel, depending upon now that they've withdrawn from the fire district and are now paying for the coverage. Having said that, the folks who live in Union Township and are paying Union Township property taxes are, in effect, because of the agreement that exists there between the township and the Colwich Volunteer Fire Department, you've got the potential for double coverage and double payments too. So it's an interesting challenge, I think, for providing effective fire coverage in Sedgwick County.
Let me just finish this up and say. Let me finish this up and just say I will support the item this morning, but I have concerns about the fact that we're creating checkerboard fire district, and this is apparently been going on for a long time. That our custom is to go ahead and accept people to opt in and opt out of the fire district, and that has been, I guess, the tradition of the county commission. But I have concerns about the fact that we are creating duplication of services. We're providing services to an area that has no intent of supporting our fire district financially, but yet we've got the obligation to maintain equipment to go out there and fight fires, which I think is exactly what we should be doing in terms of we want to respond to those needs wherever they are, regardless of the finances behind that. But on the other hand, it is not ideal. So, well, Commissioners, I see no further discussion, and we have a motion and a second. So, Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Commissioner Unruh.
Aye.
Commissioner Norton.
Aye.
Commissioner Peterjohn.
Aye.
Commissioner Ranzau.
Aye.
Chairman Howell.
Aye. All right, Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Item F, consideration of a National Institute of Justice 2016 Capacity Enhancement and Backlog Reduction Program Grant in the amount of $311,341 for new DNA laboratory instrumentation.
Good morning, Commissioners. Dr. Tim Roy, Director of the Regional Forensic Science Center. Before you today, as you heard, we have a National Institute of Justice grant for some equipment and some software that will assist the DNA laboratory. You heard yesterday about some of the challenges that the DNA laboratory is facing. This grant, if approved, will be part of the solution to those challenges. I'd mentioned that we're buying some equipment. We have 2 genetic analyzers that are 10+ years old. They will go out of service in 2018. A good portion of this grant will allow us to purchase a new genetic analyzer, which will actually increase some efficiencies via higher throughput. The other aspect of the grant will allow us to buy some intelligent software. This will allow us to examine and process complex mixtures that we see in a number of our DNA cases, decreasing the amount of human labor that's involved in that process, again, increasing our efficiency and capacity in the grant or in the laboratory. So I'd recommend that you would approve the application of the grant, and if awarded, authorize the acceptance of the grant, establish the appropriate budget authority as provided in the grant application. And I will stand for any questions that you may have related to this subject.
Commissioners, any questions or comments? Seeing none right now, what's the will of the board?
I move we take the recommended action.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Commissioner Unruh.
Aye.
Commissioner Norton.
Aye.
Commissioner Peterjohn.
Aye.
Commissioner Ranzau.
Aye.
Chairman Howell.
Aye.
Thank you,
Thank
Commissioners.
Dr. Warwick.
Appreciate your support.
Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Item G, resolution adopting a policy for signs in the public right-of-way consistent with K.S.A. 25 TAC 2711.
Morning, Commissioners. John Von Atchen, Assistant County Counselor. What you have before you today is a resolution regarding signs in the right-of-way during an election period. Last year, the legislature passed K.S.A. 25-2711, which allowed a 48-day period in which political signs could not be regulated by cities or counties. In reviewing that particular statute, it appears to conflict with our county engineers' duties under K.S.A. 68-115 to maintain the right-of-way. There's also an additional statute that speaks specifically about no obstructions being in the right-of-way. In order to resolve the conflict between the two statutes, in addition to the Supreme Court's decision in Reed v. Town of Gilbert last year regarding free speech, what you have before you is a resolution that will allow all private signage with restrictions in the right-of-way. Those restrictions being 300 feet at intersections and the unincorporated parts of the county where the county maintains the road, and 15 feet back in all other locations along the roadway. There are also some additional restrictions regarding size and weight and height. Mainly to the concern with larger signage is that if someone were to come off of the road and strike that signage, it would cause damage to likely to their vehicle and potentially to their person. So 2711 does allow for regulation involving safety, and so we've taken that opportunity to look at what would be the safest way to maintain the right-of-way and to still balance that free speech issue. Because the statute talks about political signage only, to rectify that form of speech versus the form of speech, any other form of speech that was spoken about in the Supreme Court case, we've chosen not to say that it's political signs only. It's going to be all private signs. So if it's a garage sale sign, if it's a realtor sign, whatever private sign, that will be allowed within the criteria of the policy. Now, that's only for the 48-day period, and that 48-day period is 45 days before an election occurs, the day of the election, and 2 days after. So currently with what we have scheduled, that would be for the August primary and for the November general election. Currently, our office has seen that there are political signs already out. Candidates have a filing deadline of noon on June 1st. So we thought it would be appropriate to get this before the commission now so that when that period opens up in June, that 45 days before the August primaries, is that the candidates would be aware of what the restrictions were and so they could comply with them. What will happen is if a candidate or anyone places a sign within the restricted area, that Public Works may remove that sign, or MAB-CD staff, if there's a complaint filed with code enforcement, may remove that sign. And then that would no longer be an obstruction in the right-of-way within that safety area that's as defined in the resolution. I stand for any questions regarding the resolution.
All right, Commissioners, any questions? Commissioner Peter John.
Since we have conflicting statutes here, do you know if anyone has requested from the Attorney General an opinion on how to resolve this conflict, since I imagine there's 104 other counties, and I'm guessing in terms of municipalities somewhere above 600 municipalities that are in the similar position to where we are?
To our knowledge, no one has requested it yet. I'm not sure how many municipalities are actually addressing it. I know it's a topic of discussion. I know the city of Wichita has at least told us that their interpretation of the statute is it's unconstitutional. Our office has reviewed it and said, well, the court hasn't made that determination yet. And in a circumstance where we can reconcile the two statutes, that's what we're choosing to do if a court eventually decides that, or if the AG eventually decides in an opinion, an advisory opinion, tells us that that is the case, then we'll review it at that point. But what we looked at was trying to find a way to resolve that conflict and the conflict with the Supreme Court case, because that was an additional issue. And I can tell you the Supreme Court case has been a large topic nationwide among municipal lawyers about how to make sign codes compliant. And so we will be doing that later on regarding our overall sign code, but we felt we needed to address the political portion as soon as possible with election season coming up.
Well, let me ask you, is this statute and the part of the state law that it's in an area of Kansas statutes that's considered uniform or non-uniform for purposes of either municipal or county home rule?
It is uniform for cities and counties. It does not include any other authorities. So townships are not covered. It does not affect KDOT's right of way. It only affects cities and counties.
Well, then let me ask you, where a county road intersects with either a state highway or a township road, who has the controlling legal authority, and how will people know if they're able to put a sign up on the county right of way but cannot do so on either a state or township right of way?
In discussing the matter with Public Works, the intent is to get the information out there to the candidates, and the election commissioner has graciously offered, when the candidate packets go out, to include information on the resolution if passed in that candidate filing, is that we will provide them additional information on how to determine within the county which roads are county roads, which intersections are governed by the county, so that we will have information for candidates so that they know where we are regulating for safety purposes. Within the townships, they're covered by a statute similar to the county engineer, in that they are not to allow any obstructions in the right of way. So that doesn't change, neither does it change for KDOT in that respect. So if those signs are in a right of way on township side or at KDOT side, we can't control any of that because that's their enforcement provision. We're only covering the counties, and we will inform the candidates of where those locations are with a map, so that they know where they can and can't place signs.
Well, frankly, I have serious concerns of the practical applicability of this resolution, because with the township and state highway, federal highway exclusion, this is going to be very problematical, and there's going to be a great deal of confusion, and since what you can do on a township right-of-way will be different from a county right-of-way or city right-of-way, I do think that that this is going to be problematical for going forward, and I know we need to address this because of the change in state law, but I think there's some real problems here. Thank you.
I have a couple of quick questions. This is a 48-day window, counting the election day itself, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And outside that 48 days, there is no provision allowing signage along these rights of way.
State statute says absolutely no obstructions in the right-of-way period.
Okay. And we're creating an allowance for these signs during the 48 days, but there's some distances from roadways and that type of thing.
Correct. The distances from roadways are for sightline purposes, for safety purposes, in addition to the regulation of the actual size of the signs itself to be in the right-of-way. Those are all safety provisions allowed for in the statute. In addition to, Public Works will continue to maintain the right-of-way, particularly this time of year when there's vegetation growing, because if we've had quite a bit of rain here recently. If we have an overgrowth, that will also affect sight lines, which will affect traffic patterns.
And so if someone puts something too close to the road or too close to the intersection, then that can be removed even during the 48 days.
That is correct. And we're doing that for safety purposes. I want to be absolutely clear. We're doing that for safety purposes. That is an allowance by statute, is that you can regulate for safety purposes.
Okay. And then outside the 48 days, again, all year long, if someone puts a sign like a garage sale sign or some other kind of advertising type of sign near an intersection, that's handled normally. I mean, we're going to do that. This doesn't change that at all.
No, this doesn't change that at all. And of course, there'll be a period when we get between when the 2 days after the August primary and the November general, that 45 days before that, where the state statute will control. It's just a question of how active the enforcement is going to be during that time frame.
Very good. I would like to recognize Commissioner Unruh.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It appears to me that this thing is confusing, and as Commissioner Peterjohn said, it's going to be difficult when we get to specific instances to exactly figure out how to handle them. However, I'm going to be supportive of this because we're doing the best we can with our county roads as best we understand the statute as it is. So I think we should go ahead with it, and we'll see how it works this first year, but it does have some inherent problems.
Commissioner Ranzau?
Tell me again, what happens outside the 48-day window?
Outside the 48-day window, the statute that controls says there are no obstructions in the right-of-way, period, of any sort.
Of counties and cities?
What we're talking about specifically applies to the county engineer and the county's and his obligation to maintain the roads under his jurisdiction. The cities are covered by separate statute and their own decisions, which is why we don't have a uniformity with the cities, even though we were hoping to get that, so that at least candidates would know that there's a uniform across Sedgwick County. But City of Wichita took another direction on that. And the townships have the same obligation under a different statute that the county engineer does, and the same restrictions regarding no obstructions in the right-of-way. So that doesn't change because the election statute does not affect them. It's cities and counties only.
So outside the 48-day window, we have no discretion. The cities do.
The city statute is entirely different. They handle their own right-of-way. What we've been told is that they will do active enforcement even during that 48-day window at least the city of Wichita will within that 48-day window, about not allowing any obstructions in the right-of-way.
Commissioner Peterjohn?
Well, let me ask a practical question, and Mr. Weber needs to answer to it. Let's say he's got mowers going out to mow along county right-of-way, and there's a sign that's I'm talking within this 48-day window prior to the primary and prior to the general election. And this would be an annual event since we have local elections now on odd-numbered years. Let's say somebody sets a sign that's 5 feet from the road or 10 feet from the road or 15 or 20 feet. how far would the sight lines go where we do, and is it uniform, or is it going to be kind of each intersection is a unique intersection, obviously, and each one will have to be evaluated individually?
Okay, we've tried to use the standard of 15 feet, and that for most of the right-of-way, because that would cover driveways. You know, come out your driveway and keeping it clear so you can see both ways before you take off. At an actual public street intersection, we're using the 300-foot. We're trying to keep that clear for 300-foot back, because that's the sight triangle across an intersection that we try to keep open, so that, you know, some of these are don't have any stop control in them. Some would have yield signs on them. Some would have stop signs on half of it, or four-way stop. So we have all these different combinations. But what we've done in the policy is just said, let's try to keep the 300-foot clear on all legs of the intersection. And so the only dimensions we're working with are keep the 300 feet clear around an intersection on all four legs, unless it's a township road on one leg, and then we don't worry about that. And then between intersections, we're trying to keep everything 15 feet back, so that keep a clear zone open, so that if you leave the road, you're not getting tangled up in signs. And then the other part is, again, we have somebody coming out to a driveway to be able to see both ways from there. But we assume that at a driveway, you're not, you know, you're driving 55. That's why we don't need a 300-foot sight triangle at a driveway. You need to be able to get up, stop, or yield, and figure out what's going on, and then move on.
Well, let me ask, if we've got a county building, let's say we've got county facilities all over, somebody could stick a sign out in front of the county yard, in effect, and if it's in that right-of-way and it's back behind that 15-foot margin, we could in effect have a county facility that's got a big sign, vote for somebody, sign in front of it, and that would be perfectly legal under this resolution.
I'm sure that our attorney would advise us to leave it alone.
Well, I find that problematical, because frankly, I don't think, you know, we should be in a situation where if we've got county right-of-way out in front of this courthouse, have people campaigning on public property. It's problematical. I don't think people, you know, we've got a public role, we've got a private role, and having county buildings with political signs all around it, because it happens to be in the right-of-way, I have some real concerns about that. And that's one of my problems with this resolution this morning, and also the fact that it applies to some governmental bodies, not to others. They say it's being driven by a court decision, which I think is reasonable in terms of promoting free speech, but this is a government entity, and that's where I'm getting I have a lot of heartburn on this. Thank you.
Just to clarify a couple more points here. If it's outside this right-of-way, it's on private property, we're not going to regulate in any way the quantity of signs, the height, the weight, the size, anything.
The statute has two components. One, it's talking about government entities regulating along the right-of-way, and the other is on private property. And it's a provision that says thou shalt not except for safety purposes, which I'm sure there may be some scenario that somebody come up with on private property where there might be a safety concern, but in reviewing it for us, we haven't seen anything where there's any sort of restriction on that, and there's nothing that we would consider doing regarding the size, shape, number of signs in a private yard or a private field.
Okay, and then on a typical county road, I mean, I don't know the answer to this question, so I'll just ask, but what is the actual typical right-of-way distance from the road that is considered right-of-way, not private property? It seems like the private property line may be very close to that 15-foot mark.
The right-of-way width varies, but typically the minimum would be what we call a 60-foot right-of-way, so 30 foot on each half of the road, or from the center of the road out. And so if we're on one of those, it typically is a road that's not have shoulders because it doesn't have enough right-of-way to do it. So if the road lane itself is 12 or 13 feet wide, we got 15 feet, we're at 26, 27, 28 feet. There's still a couple of feet that's inside the right-of-way, but outside of the safety zone. And most of these signs, if you look at the sign size limitations, these signs are going to fit in that spot anyway.
I anticipate another problem that is because the private property owners along there are going to feel like you're putting signs on their property. And it feels like their property because it's a long distance from the road. It's it's close to the property lines. They might assume that that's someone placing signs on private property without permissions. That's going to create a whole other firestorm.
We recognize that the statute's problematic. There's not a whole lot of guidance. All it says is thou shalt not restrict, except for safety purposes. So, and we can't control if a private individual says, you know what, that's close enough to my property line. I don't like that candidate. I'm going to pull the sign. Or I don't like the particular business that's advertising in front of my property. I'm going to pull the sign. We can't control that. All we can control is what we do as Sedgwick County.
All right. Commissioner Peter John?
Well, I strongly support the elimination of government restrictions on size, shape, quantity of signs on private property. But my problem with this is, and my concern about this is strictly on the city and county, obviously primarily county at this point, where our direct jurisdiction is located on county property here. But I am appreciative of the fact, and I've thought it problematical, the regulation of free speech on private property by all levels of government in this country, and of course Washington's the worst offender in that regard. Thank you.
All right. Madam Clerk, do we have a motion? No motion yet. Commissioners, what's the will of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I'd move that we approve the resolution.
All right. I'll go ahead and second that. We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Seeing none. Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Commissioner Unruh.
Aye.
Commissioner Norton.
Aye.
Commissioner Peter John.
No.
Commissioner Ranzau.
Aye.
Chairman Howell.
Aye. All right. Well, thank you for that.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Good work, Mr. Monanchin.
Thank you.
All right. Let's go on to the next item. Madam Clerk.
Item H, presentation of the quarterly financial report.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Rick Durham, your Deputy Chief Financial Officer. And Kate's handing out the slides that we're going to go through today. Let me get the technology.
Thank you.
Here we are. Typically, you would receive this report about 2 weeks earlier than you are this month, but because your schedule changes and your meeting that you had in Derby and some other things that we've bumped it back a couple of weeks. So we're well into the second quarter, and you're going to receive a first quarter financial briefing. I know for the last 2 weeks you've been hearing presentations on 2017 budget. So allow me to bring you back to the future, or I guess in the past here, so we can review our actuals from the first quarter fiscal year 2016. Back to the future. Thanks you for. So allow me to begin here with projections to the end of the year as of March 31st. So what this chart shows is the different funds of the county. So starting on the left, the general fund. That's the county's primary operating fund, and it accounts for the county services that do not have a designated fund of their own. The general fund includes most government and law enforcement functions, and the operation of 42 departments are funded from the general fund. So if you follow this down, expenditures are estimated to exceed revenues by about $3.7 million at the year end, and those are primarily due to one-time capital improvement projects that are cash funded this year. So the transfers of cash to those capital projects. And we project an ending fund balance, a net change in that fund balance of approximately $3.7 million, and that ending fund balance will be projected at $59.27 million. So as we move to the debt service funds, revenues from the debt service funds are estimated to be almost $250,000 greater than expenditures. As we move to the right, special revenue funds, those are property tax supported. The county has 7 other property tax supported funds. That's bond and interest, EMS, ComCare, aging, highway, noxious weeds, and Wichita State. Each fund
provides specific functions, and the property taxes levied in each fund are used to only support these functions. So these funds are expected to have a net increase of roughly $1 million this year, with an ending fund balance of $8.7 million. Special revenue funds, non-tax supported, the county has 31 budgeted other operating funds that are not supported directly with property taxes, and these funds are estimated to decrease by $3 million in combined fund balance. And then the next to the last column before we total it up is the fire district, and the fund balance is estimated to increase roughly $53,000 by the end of the year in the fire district. So remember, we talked about the county tax supported funds. That's what we're looking at here. So the net revenues in the first quarter were $98 million. That's an increase of about 1.3 compared to the same period in 2015. Net expenditures in property tax supported funds increased $3.6 million compared to the same period in 2015. And again, that increase can be attributed to the transfers to cash fund capital projects. This is a percentage change overall, so you can see a 1.4% increase in revenues and a 5.6% increase in expenditures. So for the county property tax supported funds, the net income is $30.4 million. So those revenues, the top 10 revenues in the county tax supported funds are listed here. And recall from the first slide I showed that we had a $1.3 million increase in revenues in county tax supported funds. So you can see the details of where those increases are, that we have $1 million increase in ad valorem taxes, motor vehicle taxes have increased, and then as you go down there it totals up all revenues including transfers is $1.3 million, and that's the change from the first quarter of 15 to the first quarter of 16. So we'll move to expenditures. We'll start with personnel expenditures. As you know, our personnel represent the largest expenditure that we have in the county. Okay, so if you can look at that, the first three lines there are decreases: salaries and wages, insurance premiums, and pension contributions. And what we attribute that to is there are about 40 less people that we paid first quarter 16 than we did first quarter 2015. As you can see, overtime is up about 13%, and then that's why you would see the increase in the FICA taxes as well, because that's the overtime attributes for that. Non-personnel expenditures. Starting there on the top line, grant awards down $4.8 million. And that's because in 2015 we had the grant award to the zoo for the elephant barn. And then we have reductions in fleet management charges, and we can attribute that to lower fuel costs. And then as we draw down and look at the medical professional services, that can be attributed to, if I can read my note here, jail inmate costs. And then dropping down the 10% on software and hardware maintenance, that is can be a part of that anyway, can be attributed to the master control system. So we move now to the non-tax special revenue funds, And like I stated at the beginning, the county has 31 budgeted operating funds which are not supported directly with county property taxes. And those include grants, internal service, and enterprise funds. And there's a significant decrease in revenues, as you see, compared to 2015 in the first quarter. And I will highlight that on a subsequent slide. Expenditures in the non-tax special revenue funds are also down. That's a 19% decrease, or $4.7 million. And again, I will show the specifics of that decrease as we come up and we itemize some of those. So here's the year-over-year first quarter. We can see both revenues and expenditures have decreased 9.4% on the revenue side and a 19% decrease in expenditures. So here are the revenues, the top 10 revenues of that non-tax funds. And you can see, starting right at line 1, Medicaid fees. That's a 28% drop, or $1.6 million in Medicaid fees that we receive. And a large portion of that, or what I've been able to discover, is that it's changes to what is reimbursable, and those took effect on 1 January. We knew that we were going to be impacted by that, and there's also further Medicaid changes that are going to impact us that we're already seeing in the second quarter, and we anticipate that to continue as we go through the fiscal year. Move to expenditures. And what I'd like to highlight here is that if you look down that chart, the 2 columns on the right, every one of them are a decrease. Okay, we're going to move back to the general fund now. And we look at the fund in a manner similar to a private sector business would, and this is on a GAAP basis. And what this chart shows is a clear pattern as you look back over the 5 previous fiscal years, and you can show that clear pattern as from the first quarter, as the tax collection cycle goes, we collect taxes and then we spend down that revenue that we have. The first quarter for each of the years is identified by the red numbers there. And again, that all falls within a very narrow range, and it shows what our total fund balance is for the general fund. Very similarly, this is a slide that talks about what our unrestricted fund balance is as a percentage of budgeted expenditures. Once again, the first quarter highlighted by the red data there, you can see falls into a very narrow range, and the same cycle that you saw on the previous slide. Just as a note, the county has a fund balance policy that states that this balance, that the unrestricted general fund balance needs to be at least 20% of budgeted expenditures. We move now to the investment portfolio. The investment yield for the first quarter was at 0.79%, and that is measured against the benchmark, which was 0.62%. And that benchmark is the 1-year Treasury bonds. And once again, you can see a clear pattern there as you look back over time, represented by the brown bars. That's the portfolio, the investment portfolio. Significant capital projects. Thought I'd list some here. That we start with the good news, the new main tag office. Obviously that is complete and going to be moved into here very shortly. new EMS Southeast post. The design is complete and construction documents should be finished in June. The third one there, the bike pedestrian bridge repairs on the Meridian Bridge, that will be let in October. Aviation pathway to Derby, or Derby to Wichita, the first phase let by KDOT and is under construction. And the last one, the bridge redeck MacArthur over the Big Arkansas River, is under construction and will be complete this fall. For a complete list of capital projects, they are in your quarterly report. So there's a comprehensive list in there. So as part of this analysis, we want to take a look at the outside impact, or I guess this would be an internal look at the county, pardon me, on fiscal stresses and key metrics at Sedgwick County. So we start with liquidity, and that's the number of days cash on hand. And what I do here is we've looked at 2013, 2014, and 2015, and you can see the trend there is that obviously the number of days cash on hand in the general fund has gone down. Some of that's attributable to using cash for capital projects. Flexibility, this measures the unrestricted fund balance as a percentage of expenditures. Our property value, our taxable value per capita. Here the next line shows direct debt per capita. And that information is taken out of the CAFR, and you received that briefing from Mr. Cronus in April. Debt burden, debt service as a percentage of general fund revenue is going down. And you can see the effective property tax rate remains flat, and the property tax reliance, that's a levy as a percentage of government fund expenditures. So here we use the same measures as on the previous slide, but we compare them to our benchmark counties. And that is correct. That's 2013 data. That the benchmark county data has not been updated by GFOA yet for a more current. So what you're going to see is 2014 and 15 data compared to the benchmark counties. And I will draw your attention to the two downward pointing arrows. First, the property value. 2015 was $62,685, and as compared to our benchmark counties, we're well below that. The benchmark counties are at $87,000. Now, as a reminder, let me remind you what our benchmark counties are, and that's in the fine print. You probably can't see at the bottom of the slide there. Those are the counties. There are 100 that have the population of 250,000 to 750,000, and that have received the GFOA CAFR award. And there are 126 of those counties that fall into that category. So we're comparing like-sized counties that would have the same financial considerations. Next, we move to the economy. So this is a slide that is actually in data that is compiled and prepared by the Center for Economic Development and Business Research at Wichita State University. And this is the leading economic indicators index. So as you can see, there's quite a lot of movement. I've drawn a circle around the last 20 months to kind of give you an idea that it falls in a very narrow range. The axis on this chart is large enough that it looks like it's quite a variance. But if you were to change that axis, it actually falls into a very, very narrow range over the past 20 months. And the latest trend is actually up. And I went the wrong direction, my apologies. So if we look at the economy on the outside, the key metrics that impact our finances, we look at 6 years worth of data. So from 2010 to 2015, we can look at our tax-based growth, home sales up, new home permits is actually down slightly. The number of mortgages registered has increased. And those increases that I'm measuring are from 14 to 15, so that's a 1-year increase. It's not over the life of the chart there. We can see sales and use taxes has increased, and the unemployment rate has gone down. So this is a quarter-to-quarter comparison to those measures. So you see home sales have increased, new home permits increased, the number of mortgages registered, and again, this is a change from the same quarter, so I'm comparing first quarter of 15 to first quarter of 16 here. So we have a decrease in the number of mortgages registered, sales and use taxes down, total employed up, and essentially the unemployed number is flat. So let me wrap this up. Here are the things that we see are potential threats to the financial well-being of the county. First and foremost, federal regulation. The example of that is the impact on the Fair Labor Standards Act, which all of you, I'm sure, are aware, passed yesterday. State programs looking to fill local gaps, or looking to local funds to fill the gap, and that's the vehicle title processing. The state budget, projected deficits in the state budget, and the Medicaid cuts. And again, our local economy, it's a slower rate of recovery that we're seeing locally than it is nationally. So key points. Sedgwick County is currently in sound financial condition. We are projecting general fund deficits in 16 of approximately $3.7 million. But keep in mind, there are nearly $7 million of transfers that are going to for cash funded capital projects. Increasing reliance on taxes to fund the government. The loss of the mortgage registration fee is something that we're going to continue to keep our eye on as that continues to be reduced, that revenue. While revenue grows modestly or is decreasing, the cost of doing business continues to increase. And an example of that is that we have to account for the costs that we're going to have as BCD and MAPD merge into the 271 building. There's going to be increases in cost. The focus of the county over the 10-year period has been increased efforts in public safety and public works, and decreased efforts in health and human services and general government. So in conclusion, through the first quarter, our financial performance is consistent with what we expected to see. Our fundamentals continue to reflect strong financial management. We are projecting deficits in 2016. And again, our 10-year focus has remained on public safety and public works. And since I'm giving this briefing so late in the quarter, I figured that you guys have all had a chance to read this thoroughly and you wouldn't have any questions for me today. But I would stand for any questions you might have.
I'm afraid this won't be that simple. Commissioner Ranzau.
Just real quick, back to slide 22.
Yes, sir.
That first line, tax base growth, you have an up arrow there because you're comparing 2015 to 14.
That's correct.
I think it's important to note for the public, if you look at that growth that's occurred over the last, how many years? That's 6 years. 1 year was actually negative. Even though it's grown in most of those years, it's very, very small compared to what it was historically back in the early 2000s. And that's the biggest source of our financial issues. If we're not growing and not bringing in more taxes, we just have less to spend. And so we've had to make some tough decisions. I think we'll continue to have to face those decisions. I mean, just our growth in utilities and basic pension and health care will eat up, more than eat up generally those increases. Would you not agree with that?
I would agree with that's a long-term trend, yes.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Peter John.
Yes, if I can jump back to slide 21. It definitely appears to me that in terms of a leading indicator on this chart, we are still well below where we were prior to the economic downturn that occurred in 2007 through 2009. And I think that's extremely problematical, and it's cautionary for us, in my opinion, when we're in a situation where agriculture, the three major areas that we export products, and growing food in the ag area, and manufacturing, particularly in corporate jet exports, and in terms of resource extraction and energy in the oil and natural gas industry, are all struggling at the moment from price downturns. And I think this chart indicates that all the happy talk about what a wonderful recovery is belies the fact that for a lot of folks, things are not as good as it used to be. I have some other topics. I appreciate Commissioner RANZAU jumping in on the changes in the tax base, because that continues to be a problem, and our reliance upon it, and the fact that we've been able to do as much as we have, albeit with the property tax portion in a diminished percentage, is reflected in this data. There's a lot of good information here, and appreciate the Finance Department's work in getting this and bringing it out, and I hope the public will pay some attention to it, because this is where the rubber meets the road. I think not only for our local government, but I think a lot of these charts would be very applicable for a lot of other governmental bodies, and I'm talking about the general economic indicators as opposed to the specifics concerning county finances. I looked at some of the numbers here, and I see this as part of our effort to move away from debt financing and strengthen the county's financial situation even further, and those numbers that you're presenting reflect that trend. So very much appreciate this presentation. Thank you.
On page 8, slide number 8, you talk about overtime has gone up in the last year. Can you confirm, does that include the fire district at all, or is that excluded from that number?
This does not include the fire district.
Okay.
That's correct, right? I just want to verify. Yes,
okay.
It is.
Going over to slide number 19. Comparing ourselves with, let me ask the question. On the line that talks about debt, debt per capita, that includes debt from all governing bodies. Like, for example, well, why don't you just tell me, who does that include? It's not just our own debt. It's other
That's
debt.
Sedgwick County's debt.
So
Yes.
just Sedgwick County's debt.
Yeah, that wouldn't include I think what you're asking is about overlapping and underlying debt.
Okay.
Would that be right? Is that what he's trying to ask? But that's just Sedgwick County's debt.
It's just, okay.
Yes.
Good for that clarification. Thank you. On the next page, on slide 20, comparing ourselves with benchmark counties.
Yes.
Okay. So the trends may be concerning between 2014 and 2015, but comparing ourselves with benchmark counties, comparing ourselves with the benchmark counties, it looks to me like we're actually in good condition compared to them everywhere, except for probably the line that talks about debt burden again. Debt burden again, the benchmark counties are 11%, we're at 13%. The rest of these lines, actually, compared to the other counties, it looks to me like we're not doing too badly. Our property values are less than the benchmark counties. We can't change that quickly. That's something we have very little control over. We do have some control over the debt burden. But everything else, liquidity, we're actually better off than the benchmark counties. Flexibility, we're better off. The property tax rate, we're better, and the property tax reliance, we're better. So I guess comparing ourselves with our benchmark counties, we're actually in really good shape overall. The one we have no control over is property values, and the one we actually do have control over, that I think we ought to be paying attention to on this slide, is our debt burden is worse than their benchmark counties. I guess the takeaway from this particular slide is we need to make sure we don't reverse our direction and start relying more on debt. That's my takeaway. All right. Other comments or questions from commissioners? Commissioner Peterjohn?
I disagree with you on that slide. Our benchmark counties were $363 per capita, and we were $332. So I'd say we were less than the benchmark counties in that regard. And I would also point out the fact to my colleagues, it's not on this presentation, but the K.S.A. recently came out with data showing that the per capita property tax burden in Sedgwick County due to county taxes was lowest among all 105 counties, and that's I think, an important point that needs to be considered in looking at our finances too. Thank you.
And just to follow up on that, I guess the line is broken out differently on the line I was referring to. It's a percentage of the general fund revenue. So a debt, our debt compared to our ability to generate revenue is the line I was referring to, not our debt per capita. Anyway, any other comments or questions from commissioners? All right. I would like to make a motion to receive and file.
Second.
Yes.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Commissioner Unruh.
Aye.
Commissioner Norton.
Aye.
Commissioner Peterjohn.
Aye.
Commissioner Ranzau.
Aye.
Chairman Howell.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Item I, Quarterly Interest Bank Arena Report.
Good morning, Commissioners. Ron Holt, Assistant County Manager, and if Kate would upload my PowerPoint, I would appreciate it. This is the first quarter 2016 report, and March, we'll give a year-to-date status as well as the March year-over-year, first quarter year-over-year report. Here with us today is A.J. Bileski, the General Manager for the arena. Each month or each quarter we talk about the goals for the arena that were established early on in the process, the plan, and the timeline, just as a matter of making sure we don't forget why we have an arena downtown and what it took to get that, and all of the good folks who were involved in doing that. We're going to talk specifically today about the agreement, our parking agreement with the City of Wichita, and our sales tax revenues. Again, these are the bullet points relative to arena management. I'm not going to go through each of those, but I continue to keep those as part of the presentation, just as a reminder of why we're here and where we've come from. The quarterly reports, then we'll get into the ticket sales. You'll see that fairly robust first quarter of events, although the mixture of events will result in, although we had a robust quarter, the net income, because of the type of events we have, would not be reflective of the robustness of all of the events. But there's a balance there of having events that relates to all aspects of our community, while at the same time trying to make the arena a very profitable organization. Again, we had first quarter 140,995 in attendance, 124,460 tickets sold. See the gross ticket sales at an average cost of $19.72 per ticket. Each year for the last number of years we've had that Winter Jam event, and that's the event where the ticket sales were through the promoter, not included in this data. The average attendance per performance was 3,525. Looking at first quarter year over year, we were 16 fewer performances, 38,370 less in attendance, 40,598 less in tickets sold. Gross ticket sales 2,469,456, and the average ticket cost per ticket sold was down $10.11. Again, the mixture of events, more family shows will drive these numbers down. More concerts will drive these numbers up. Moving on to the community affairs piece of this, with the net employee wages and benefits. Full-time employees 41, part-time employees 350 to 355, with employee wages and benefits at a $729,831. Total number of community groups volunteering in concession stands 69. Again, you'll recall these are not individual groups. Some of those counted twice.
Amount paid to these groups was $135,704. Spending with Sedgwick County or Kansas companies was $939,025.72. Sales tax paid for this first quarter was $280,878.57. There were 4 arena presentations and tours and 6 local events. You'll also note that those spending with Kansas companies does not include various expenses that were paid directly by the promoter for some event-related expenses. Moving on to the community service projects, you'll see a lot of these from report to report. Many ticket donations, community involvement, volunteering efforts in support of various organizations and activities in and across our community. The arena continues to be a good corporate community citizen. Moving on then into the financial summary. The first quarter report shows a net building income of a $79,220 loss. Again, reflective of the varied number and types of events. You see there, we had 4 concerts, 3 family shows, 2 sporting events, 18 Wichita Thunder hockey games, 1 Wichita Force indoor football game, and those 6 other events that the arena hosted for 34 events, 40 performances, again resulting in that $79,220 loss for the quarter. Looking at these numbers year over year, first quarter, again you'll see the difference in performances and events, and the type of events, as I mentioned before, makes a difference. See the difference in the income categories of other operating income, the total gross income differences. The expense differences, we're able to hold the line on expenses. And if you compare this to the first quarter last year, which had a lot of concerts, you see that there's a major significant difference in the operating income. And so the shift this year, the concert timing of concerts shifting this year, and so it makes a difference in these first quarter numbers. Moving on to the event parking, you'll see we continue to have good numbers from a parking point of view, from a parking income point of view, so that have not come and not anywhere close to having to use monies from the reserves to underwrite parking. The arena sales tax reserves, and there's that number. We have an agreement with the city where we're committed to up to $225,000 annually for the city to provide parking, operations and maintenance on lots A, B, C, and D, and we have not even come close any time to having to do have any funding for that. And so our O&M reserve as of March 31 stands at $11,809,874.22. We had return or repayment of 2015 unused CIP funds of $2,959.01 in the first quarter. You see the expenditures there of $1,138,000. Much of that, again, comes out of, I guess all of those, except the capital improvements there, come out of the receipts that we get as from the naming rights partners, because with those 3 partners, INTRUST Bank, Cessna, and Spirit, the naming rights contracts are with the county, not directly with the arena. So we get the receipts, and then we, out of those agreements, return based on what's called for in those agreements back to the arena, a portion of those revenues. Looking at the arena sales tax year over year, we're down $780,840.57 from first quarter last year. Much of that is related to the increased capital improvement numbers. See upcoming events, and as you can see from those events, over the next several months, there's quite a variety of show offerings. You may recall in 2013, 2014, we had discussed with you the really only two recurring dissatisfactions that we were hearing from the community for arena operations, and they were the lack of variety in acts for concerts, particularly rock and pop genre events, and the scarcity of summer bookings. I'm pleased to report that it's been quite some time since I've heard anyone talk about dissatisfaction with the variety of acts, and even got a mention in the May 11th, Wichita Eagle with a little story on arena bookings offering welcomes variety. So we have, from that point of view, a recognition of that as well. I know that AJ and his folks have worked hard to make sure that they are not only continuing to provide top-notch fan experience for those people attending events, but also to look at varieties and continue to work hard on making sure that there are summer activities in the arena as well. Be happy to answer any questions that you have over this report.
All right, Commissioners, questions for Ron Holt? Commissioner Peter John?
Well, I've got a question more for AJ than for Ron. I know some of the acts we've had coming in, and of course listed here on the upcoming events is like Luke Bryan and Dave Matthews, which of course are events that have already occurred. I was just curious how Luke Bryan did compared to how he did when he was here roughly 4 years ago in 2013, and how the concert business is doing generally.
AJ Bileski with SMG and Interest Bank Arena. As far as Luke Bryan, I don't know that we ever officially announced, but we were right there at that sold-out mark last week. We had more than 12,000 people there, so it was a great show. That was last time he was here, he sold out as well, so both times at capacity for that show. So great experience last Friday night for Luke Bryan. As far as other events, we're noticing, Ron kind of alluded to this, in the industry this year, what we've seen so far, a lot of quantity. Last year, if you compare us year over year, in first quarter we had a couple of bigger shows like a Fleetwood Mac and a Bob Seger. This year there's a lot of quantity. We just haven't had, we had Luke Bryan, but we didn't have that Fleetwood Mac comparable so far this year. So that's one thing when you compare the quarters year over year. But overall, it looks good. I can tell you, even looking into 17, we have more shows confirmed or close to in 17 this far out than we have had in the past. So it's looking like a good year coming up as well.
Well, obviously the big thing coming forward, and you've mentioned it here going forward, is having the NCAA men's basketball coming in. I just wanted to kind of do what information can we throw out, even though this is a bit of an early date and we are, roughly 10 months ahead.
As far as the event itself, we don't have a lot. We will get into the final details, like of tickets going on sale, that kind of stuff, as we get closer. Like right now, I think they're talking about tickets going on sale for 17's event, so probably about a year out. I will tell you, plans are being made as we speak. Myself and our assistant GM went down to Oklahoma City in March and did a kind of behind-the-scenes tour during the practice day and also during the event day. Of what was going on there, what we need to do as far as our facility goes. We will do the same thing next year when it's hosted in Tulsa, all in order to get ready for 2018 in Wichita.
Thank you.
I have a couple quick questions. Do we earn interest income on the O&M reserve? Is that reflected in these balances?
The O&M reserve is invested along with all of the other county investments, and so there is interest income, but it goes into the county's general fund.
So the interest on this fund does not go back into the fund? Okay.
No, sir.
I noticed that we started out, it says $15.5 million Is that when they opened the arena? So
Yes, sir.
2010. And now today it's, based on this report, it's down to 11.8. Okay, so have we ever seen that flat or go up? Is it just continually down slowly?
The first year, of course, it went down. It's first couple of years after that, it bounced up a little bit because we were getting more income than paid out because our CIP numbers were much lower. We're now 6 years into the arena being opening, and we're going to see more and more CIP projects as we work to keep the arena fresh and refreshed.
That does make sense. And so I guess I continue to be concerned about this O&M reserve. I think that if you just extrapolate this out, there's a point coming where we're going to have to find a solution to it. I mean, we just can't bury our head in the sand and let this continue forever, because eventually it's going to be a deficit. So, I mean, there's going to have to be a solution created somehow to address this, because otherwise it's going to, I mean, it looks to me like it's just going down and down. This quarterly report, it went down almost $800,000 just this one quarter.
The reason for that is because last year, I can't remember what our CIP numbers were, and some of that's the timing of when we pay out of those naming rights agreements back to, as I sit here and think about that, from 15 to 16, I think most of that difference is the timing of when we made the payments back to SMG out of those naming rights agreements. Because in 2015, our CIP number was $790,000, and I think it's about that or a little into the $800,000 number for 2016.
Okay. I am curious about that interest income on this again. I'd like to see a report on how much money that has created for the county. If you don't mind, I'd like to just know how much we've taken from this fund that was interest on this O&M reserve. I'd like to see those numbers, if that's okay. All right.
I think Mr. Cronus can do that. I'll talk to him about doing it.
All right. Thank you for those answers, Commissioner Unruh.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to make a comment, like I typically do, on slide 13 about the involvement in our community. Ron mentioned it when he was talking about this slide, but almost $1 million spent with Sedgwick County companies, which I think is great, and $280,000 worth of sales tax receipts, great. So congratulations on that, AJ. Appreciate it. And also, AJ, I'd like to I'll emphasize the fact of the variety of different acts that you're bringing in. We used to get a few calls about like that. We get fewer and fewer now with a variety of acts. So good job there. I do have a question though. What is a five-finger death punch and shine down? Is that a wrestling match?
No, actually, we have wrestling coming up in June. But no, Five Finger Death Punch is a rock band that has actually played our building a couple years ago, and they're coming back as a co-headliner in October.
It's an interesting name. So, well, one other question. On the Dodge Brawl, I think Commissioner RANZAU was wanting to put a team together. How does he apply for that?
That's easy. Just contact the arena, INTRUST Big Arena. We are signing people up for that now. Thanks for bringing that up. We've really a lot of focus on kind of creating some community events in the summertime, and Dodge Brawl is one of those examples. Wingapalooza we just announced that we had last year. That was a very successful event. So we're focused on providing those in the summertime when things are a little slower from a touring standpoint. But that's one reason. But yeah, we'll be glad to sign you up, Commissioner, if you would like.
Thank you. I'll take that under consideration.
All right. Commissioners, any other questions or comments? All right. I would make a motion we receive and file.
Second.
Any final comments? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Commissioner Unruh.
Aye.
Commissioner Norton.
Aye.
Commissioner Peterjohn.
Aye.
Commissioner RANZAU.
Aye.
Chairman Howell.
Aye. Thank you very much for the reports and for the good answers this morning. All right, Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Item J, discussion of options for the Sedgwick County Zoological Society operating agreement.
Good morning again, Commissioners. Ron Holt, Assistant County Manager. Since December the 3rd, 2015, we've been engaged in a number of meetings with representatives of the Sedgwick County Zoological Society Board of Directors, to discuss proposed changes to the operating agreement between Sedgwick County and the Sedgwick County Zoological Society. These discussions were in accordance with the notice of termination of funding agreement letter sent to the Zoological Society Board Chair dated November 18th, 2015. In that letter, although it was about the funding agreement, it also mentioned that we would want to begin discussions on both the funding and the operating agreement, with the operating agreement being in line, being the first in line. The current operating agreement states that either party may terminate the agreement by giving written notice by June 1 of any year, which with termination becoming effective the following January 1. As such, to allow time for these discussions to continue, the Zoological Society requested an extension of time beyond the June 1 date that was called for in the existing agreement. And so with that in mind, I would recommend that you approve and authorize an amendment to the operating agreement to change the date that notice of termination is to be given from June 1 to November 18th, with termination becoming effective January 1 of the following year if no agreement is reached. As you recall, similar amendments occurred last year in May and August with respect to the funding agreement, resulting in actions related to that notice of termination that was approved and adopted on November the 18th. It's my recommendation. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
All right, any questions from commissioners? Commissioner Unruh?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ron, the operating agreement we're currently under actually has the same conditions as we've had for the last several years?
Yes, I think the last time it was changed was in 2005, I believe.
And that was modification. Typically, we've had our operating agreement with the zoo now for 40 years, or
since the early 70s.
Okay, I assume that this has been presented to the Zoological Society.
It has been. At the last board meeting is where the request came to extend the time to allow, beyond that June 1 date, to allow more time for discussions of the various issues to continue.
Did the society ask for a November 18 date?
They did not. They asked for a fall date. Actually, I think at one time they talked about extended it into next year, and then they talked about October-ish, based on what we'd done last year with the funding agreement, and it was decided that the November 18th date would be fallish, giving them plenty of time to get beyond the elephant openings and get through the summer months, and not be pressed to have something by the October 1 date.
Well, and I understood they've got the elephant opening and they've got annual meeting and new people coming on, and they wanted a little bit later date, but I thought we were, at one time I heard we were really wanting a July 1 date, and so I just wondered why, why we're going on so. It seems like, I guess my thought is just, it seems like this is going on a long time, and maybe it takes that long to negotiate it, but it just seems like this is longer than it ought to be, and I really think we started this a year ago almost, didn't we?
December 3rd, I think, is when the manager and I had our first meeting with representatives of the Zoological Society.
But we initiated the cancellation of the contract and called for that date, didn't we, at our last budget?
That was only related to the funding agreement.
Okay, okay. Well, it just seems like this is going on such a long, long time, and I personally would like to get it settled. Now, if the zoo said they're good with it, then I guess I shouldn't complain, because that's kind of who I would want to be sort of advocating for. And if it gives them 6 more months, which it just doesn't seem like that's very efficient. But if they're happy with 6 more months and they can continue on the program, but I think they are, for the most part, pretty happy with our old contract, which it's been very successful and I'm supportive of, so I could sign off on that tomorrow, I guess. And for the commission, I guess we're happy. It gets us through our budget season without messing with this issue, and it gets us past the election cycle, which is, a consideration. So I don't know. Both, if the zoo's for it, I don't know why I'm complaining. It just seems like this is really not a good way to do business, to stretch it out this long.
Commissioner Mike Scholes, County Manager. In discussions with Mark DeVries and also Mark Reed, it is the intention to get it done a lot sooner. They would desire to get it done a lot sooner. They asked for the extension, and really November 18th is like the last possible time before we get into the holiday season. So it's just kind of the logical date, but they seem to indicate that it's going to be a lot sooner, and they're working on it now. But they are the ones that requested it, and we're the ones suggesting to support their recommendation.
Okay, so they requested extension, not necessarily that date, but they wanted more time, and they're going to continue to work.
Yeah, they suggested 1 October, and like Ron said, they even talked next year. But I think, like I said, November 18th is a good date prior to getting the holidays and getting something done as soon as we can. But I'm hoping to get it done in the next couple of months.
Well, for my 2 cents, I hope we can push it on and get it done. So,
Commissioner Norton?
Well, last date I heard was 7/1, so October, November next year is a surprise to me. I just as soon move ahead. I'm with Commissioner Unruh on, I think the operating agreement we've functioned under for years is adequate. We've seen our zoo grow and become a world-class zoo. We're all excited about the elephants, and this is no time for consternation and pushing and pulling back and forth. We need to move this along, get an operating agreement, get our funding in place. I can't believe the zoo will be happy to go into the end of the year not knowing exactly how they're going to operate and whether their funding is going to still be stable. And that causes consternation for me, because the zoo is too critically important as tourism, as a entity in our community. And there's great pride in this community, and to let this linger and fester just does not make sense to me. So I would urge us to move quicker than slower to get this taken care of, so there's stability into this great organization. And there's a lot of people, a lot of volunteers that have put a lot of time into making sure through the Zoological Society that we have a world-class zoo. And for us to now start meddling in some of that really flies in the face of good partnership and stewardship for a world-class entity in our community. So I'm going to say we need to move quicker than slower, and I have a little bit of a problem in pushing it down the road past the election cycle. I just as soon have this resolved and off the table before we go into that cycle. I think it's an important issue in our community, and it doesn't need to linger and lay on a table and have people guessing as to what we do in Sedgwick County. So I urge us to resolve this as quick as possible, and I'll offer up any expertise, knowledge, or ability that I have to help with that process if it's needed. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you, Commissioner. I just wanted to clarify a couple of things. We've offered a couple of contract options to the zoo over the last number of months, I believe. Is that correct, Mr. Manager? So the ball right now is in their court. They could essentially accept the contract that's been offered to them right now if they wanted to. They could resolve this at any time. So the ball's in their court, and I think we're patiently waiting for their response at this point. that sound right?
Correct.
Okay. I'd like to make sure we have a proper motion here. Do we need to amend the expiration date in the operating agreement? Is that what we're trying to do here?
That's correct. You would adopt the amendment that I sent you copies of that amendment that had been signed by the Zoological Society president last night via email. So you would adopt that amendment, which in effect moves the termination date for the operating agreement from June 1 to November the 18th.
Okay. And the chairman needs to sign that.
I
correct?
think it's all five
All 5?
commissioners sign it.
There it is. Okay, very good. Well, I would make that motion as you articulated it.
I'll second.
Okay. And just to clarify, this is just a 6-month extension from today. Today is May the 18th. 6 months from now is November the 18th. No magic about that. I agree with the manager. That just gets it done hopefully before the holiday season. It pushes it back as far as we possibly can, I think. We don't want to go into next year, I don't think. So giving them as much time as they possibly might need, and again, we could resolve this today. We could resolve it at any time. It's really up to the zoo, I think, at this point to come to the table and let us know what they need. So with that, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Seeing none. Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Commissioner Unruh.
Aye.
Commissioner Norton.
Aye.
Commissioner Peterjohn.
Aye.
Commissioner Ranzau.
Aye.
Chairman Howell.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Yeah. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Item K, discussion of the Law Enforcement Training Center.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Joe Thomas, Purchasing Director. Last week, we presented to you at our report of the Board of Bids and Contracts regular meeting of May 5th, 8 items. And among those 8 items, item number 5 was the recommendation regarding the building of the Law Enforcement Training Center. After much discussion, it was decided to defer this item for further review, as well as to hold a special en banc meeting with the City of Wichita. And that special meeting was held yesterday. And so we are here today to represent to you our recommendation of item number 5, Building for Law Enforcement Training Center. And this recommendation is to accept the proposal from MWCB LLC and enter negotiations with the intent to execute a contract to purchase a newly constructed building at the Wichita State University Innovation Campus for a total amount of $9,542,379. I'll be happy to answer any further questions you may have, and I recommend approval of this item.
All right. Let me open this up with a motion. I would like to make a motion we do accept the recommended action, and I'd like to have some further discussion if this gets a second.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. I'll open up to commissioners for comments first. Commissioner Peterjohn.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This has been an issue that has been in front of the community for long before I came upon, got the privilege of sitting on the county commission bench here, and it's something that I think needed to be done, and a lot of credit needs to go all over this community. When I look at the fact, there's been a lot of talk about how the strife and turmoil in the local end. We had 3 important entities for this community: Sedgwick County, City of Wichita, Wichita State University, all coming together, all working together, all putting a plan together, and we did it very carefully, appropriately. There's been a lot of talk about challenges, but we had a joint meeting yesterday that I think was I think it was momentous and deserved more attention than it had received, especially in light of some of the events that had preceded it. There's been a lot of hard work that went into this, and I want to call out and give some credit to my predecessors who I know have been working on this issue as chairman of the county commission. Now, of course, Chairman Howell's in charge this year, but in the past, last year, Chairman Ranzau in 2015 carried this issue, and I know before him, Commissioners Unruh and Commissioners Norton all worked on this issue. We've all struggled with it, and all of us who've had the privilege of being the chair of the County Commission and working on this issue. And yesterday I felt very pleased and proud to be able to be in a position to bring this community together in a way on this issue. And we've got law enforcement involved. Later on this week, Friday, we're going to have the memorial event. It's an annual event. Hold it in the City Council chambers, Wichita City Council chambers, and then we're going to be at the Law Enforcement Memorial across the street. And I think to have the Sheriff Easter, and Police Chief Ramsey, and as well as basically, this is a signature moment for this community, and I'm going to be very pleased to support this motion today, and wanted to try and draw a little attention to it and spread a little praise too. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Ranzau.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, Commissioner Peter John alluded to this particular attempt, I think, started basically back in July of 2015 when the mayor informed us that they would be willing to work with us on an RFP together to move this forward. And so really this particular effort has lasted 10 months. Now that's about 4 months longer than what I had anticipated, but nevertheless, compared to the 30-year process that's been going on overall, you consider this almost lightning speed for government actions. But nevertheless, we are finally here at the point that we're going to make a decision on the Law Enforcement Training Center. And I appreciate the efforts of staff both here at the county and at the city, as well as all the law enforcement personnel who participated in this, getting us to this point. I will say that the option that I think we have two options that will fit the needs. The WSU one would fit the needs so well, I believe, the Commerce building, which is over $3 million cheaper. That would be the particular one that I would have preferred to go to, because I think it does meet all of our community needs at the lowest cost possible for the taxpayer. That being said, while this may not be the most cost-effective option that we could have gotten, it's certainly probably the best we can get given the circumstances. So, City of Wichita made it very clear they would not proceed with the Commerce building. They would start all over and do it again if we selected that. So we're left with the conundrum: what do we do? Do we say, okay, we're not going to do anything, or we're going to try and work with them and see what we can do? And so fortunately, we had a chairman who had some vision and saw the big picture and said, well, if we're going to spend more money on this facility than probably what we need to, what can we get for the extra expense for the taxpayers? And so he entered into discussions about the fire training center. And while he was criticized for this, I think is an example of having a vision and not having tunnel vision. You've got to see the big picture, and he addressed two very important issues for this community in a very effective way. And so we're not just here today to celebrate the Law Enforcement Training Center, but we can celebrate the Regional Fire Training Center as well, and the new partnership between the City of Wichita and Sedgwick County with that. And I think he should be congratulated for his vision and his leadership in that area for our community. Sometimes if you want to be a leader, you have to be prepared to be criticized. But you continue to march forward and do the right thing because you know it's the right thing, and that's what leadership is. Despite all the detractors and all the naysayers, you have a vision, you have a goal, and you execute a plan to reach that goal, and that's admirable in this day and age. And so, for those reasons, I've stated I do believe this is the best deal we can get given the circumstances. And certainly for the county and law enforcement and fire folks, it's a tremendous step forward. I appreciate our legal counsel and all the work that they did as well on this, and the county manager. I know it's been a lot of discussion, a lot of stuff going on, so appreciate that, and I'll be supportive of this motion today.
Again, Commissioner Peter John.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to second Commissioner Ranzau's remarks concerning the fire side of it. Since there is not a fire district agenda today, the en banc meeting yesterday, and this goes directly to the chairman's hard work, Chairman Howell did, I think, an incredible amount of heavy lifting to get the fire agreement that we have in place to be able to utilize that training facility that we have not been able to utilize before. I've had staff bring me ideas on how we could enhance and improve fire training because we could not get access, and the fact that we have that agreement now in place that's going to allow us to use the facility that the city's been using, I think is a huge step forward for the fire district, and I want to express my appreciation for Chairman Howell and everyone else who's been involved in the work that went into that, including all the appropriate folks and county staff. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Further comments from commissioners? Let me just say I appreciate the complimenting remarks of the previous two commissioners speaking, and I wanted to talk about a few of the items they raised. First of all, I'd like to say I think the bid board process for buildings delivers the best solution. What I think the problem has been over the last, again, I have not been here that long, but over the last decade, there's been a number of options I think that's been discussed in the community. I remember a discussion about the Cessna building on 21st Street. I remember a discussion more recently about Southeast High School. We've had some discussion over the last year about Judge Du Bois Ranch as a potential place to do law enforcement training. And I think one of the challenges we have in government is you don't know what you don't know. And so as we discuss these items, you accept those as the best we can do and move in that direction, and really don't have competition to know that whether you're getting a good deal for the taxpayers or not. Before I came here, I think it's been the practice of the county to do building acquisitions differently than what we do in this example. And I challenged ourselves when we started talking about the 271 building. I wasn't pleased with the decision that the county had made regarding the plan for the 271 building, and I think that the plan to put some of the things in that building that were planned at that time, it didn't seem right to me, and I was concerned about the parking and the number of people and the employees that would be trying to access that building with the limited parking that we had. I know there's probably some debate on whether those are the right understanding of those things or not, but nevertheless, we talked about, do we really want to put the tag office in that building or not? And so we talked about that as a board, and we finally decided to go ahead and look out and see what else can we find. So we issued an RFP, and at that time, I remember some discussion came back to me about a week or two after we made that decision on the staff meeting that we had never done this before. This was the first time we'd ever actually used an RFP process to look for a building acquisition or building solution. I was surprised by that, but what I like about this is it creates a snapshot in time, saying here's the options we have available to us right now that we can identify. Let's let the free market speak to us. Let's let them propose ideas to us for our consideration. And that free market process also delivers, I think, some competition that's drastically needed in government acquisitions. I'm still convinced we did not get a good deal on the 271 building. I believe the Epic Center, which was sold not too much later, it's more than what? It's around 25 stories, I believe. It sold for around $10 million. I don't know how many square feet that is, but that's an enormous building. And there's a building, the USG 259 administration building sold for about $1 million. And it's not too far from the 271 building. So there's comparisons downtown that make me question whether we really got a good deal on 271 building. But we'll never know because we didn't really have any competition. In my opinion, we looked at those options independently, and I think negotiations happened after the fact. After we made the selection, the negotiations on price was something that happened subsequently. Maybe I'm wrong in saying it that way, but that's what I understand. And so the tag office used the 271 building, and right now we've got, I think, a much better option, which is going to open on June the 2nd, here in just a couple weeks. And I'm extremely excited for Linda Kazire. And again, this is one of those projects that's taken 17 years. I understand that's the magic number this year. We keep talking about 17-year problems, but this is a problem for 17 years. They've been trying to solve the Murdoch tag office. And again, there's been people here who've talked about it for years, but never were able to get to a decision on what to do. The RFP process delivered an answer. We had competition, we had options, we had competition. A snapshot in time, we picked the best option off the table and implemented a plan. and that's going to happen. It's going to open here in a couple of weeks, and it's going to be beautiful and fantastic for the community. I'm really proud of the commission for going down that path. So using the RFP process to find a law enforcement training center is the key, I think, for getting a solution. Rather than hemming and hawing and talking about things for years, an RFP process delivers a requirement that you take a snapshot in time, see what the options are, and pick one and move forward. And that's exactly where we are right now. And that snapshot in time did deliver some interesting options. I'll tell you, all 4 of these were very beautiful buildings. A couple of these are brand new, a couple of these are remodels. In each case, the option delivers a very functional, adequate-sized building with all the resources needed to do law enforcement training. I'm looking at these prices. The highest one is over $11 million. The cheapest one is $6.2. And between these 4 options, it was told to us during one of our meetings we had with the sheriff that the Commerce building was, in fact, an adequate facility. And so as a conservative, I like the idea of trying to find a facility that delivers adequately what we need, a state-of-the-art 21st century facility, state-of-the-art 21st century facility that has all the resources and space we need to do law enforcement training. And that solution is $6.2 million. I believe that is a great option for us. But as we discussed this with members in the city council, we've thought about this, and the community, by the way, has talked to us. So I'm sure all the commissioners have had responses from the community. I've had a very mixed response. I've had a lot of people say, be conservative and pick the least expensive option that provides an answer. Some people would like to see other options. They think there's other buildings in the community that would actually be even better than this. It would be less money than this. I don't know that we really have those options available to us. Again, the RFP process gave us 4 options to compete. We need to pick one of the 4 options. And out of these 4 options, there is one that is less expensive, that does meet the needs. But I talked with members of the city council. I've talked with the mayor at length about this, and I really felt like that in order for us to get on the same page, somebody's got to move. And let me change directions for just a minute here. I've been here for about 15 months in this position. Actually, I guess about 16 months now. I've attended, I think, every Sedgwick County Fire District graduation since I've been here. And at those events, I have asked those folks, because they have a videotape they'll play that shows how they train. And I've asked those folks, why do we do it the way we do it? And I was surprised by the answer. The answer was, this is the best we can do. We train in city parks. We train on playground equipment. We train in parking lots. We also train in out-of-county resources. We actually go to Newton for our fire burn training. And so to go out of the county to do that, in my opinion, is not the best option. But that's the best we can do. And I thought, why do we not work with Wichita and train in the facility that they've been using since 2010? It's a state-of-the-art 21st century facility. It's a beautiful facility. It's very adequate. It has tremendous resources. And I have had a lot of difficulty getting the background on this, but I was told by members of Wichita that the county declined the offer to partner with them to become partners back when this was being discussed on the city side. And I've looked for people on the county side who can find out why did we decline that. And I've yet to find anybody who even has recollection of the offer. Now maybe they're not here anymore. Manager Bill Buchanan left last summer, and perhaps maybe he got to his level. I don't know. But as far as the commissioners themselves and other staff that are still here, I've not been able to find anybody who has recollection of an offer being declined. So we are where we are. I can't go back and undo history. It is my opinion that taxpayer-owned resources ought to be utilized to the greatest extent, and our fire department arguably responds into the city of Wichita more than they do into their own fire district. We provide great services. Our firefighters provide great services into the city of Wichita a lot, more so than they even do to the people who are actually paying for their costs for them to exist. And we have agreements with Wichita. They do respond into the county as well, and I appreciate that very much. But I think that the reality is we ought to do what's best for everyone, and that is to utilize this resource to the greatest extent possible. And the reality is, we looking at a fire district budget, we don't have a lot of money in there to do a lot of things. Had they asked us to take money out of there for a capital investment, I don't think we could do it. We don't have the dollars to do so. And so I've asked our leadership for within the fire district to respond to the idea, well, what exactly is wrong? How have we tried to solve this problem in the past? And I've received a number of testimonials from the division fire chiefs, the battalion chiefs of our fire district. And I've got a consistent response from all of them that they've tried over the years to get along and try to find a way to train with Wichita, and it's been very difficult to do so. We have trained there very infrequently. And so the idea that we have a great relationship and we've trained together, consistently over the last 5 or 6 years is just not true. We have trained there very infrequently, and but not to the extent that we were able to solve our training needs. And so I had identified this as an area that we need to fix. And again, we're having a great discussion about law enforcement training, jointly training with Wichita in a state-of-the-art 21st century facility. And I support that mission and that goal. I think it's incredibly important. We need a better facility than the one we've been training in for more than 30 years. But that is exactly the same arguments I can make about the fire training. And I think it's great that we're solving the problem on the law enforcement side, but we never solved the problem on the fire training side. And so I raise this as an area that we need to fix. And I appreciate so much that finally, after a long, many months discussion with Wichita, we finally got an agreement in place. They voted for it yesterday, 7-0. And I appreciate that. We are now going to work together and utilize that resource to the greatest extent possible to further enhance and prepare our firefighters to deliver the best skills possible to our constituents as well as theirs. This is to provide safety for our firefighters as well as the public that we serve. And I believe it's the right thing for us to do. And I think this is a great compromise by Wichita. And with that, I wanted to compromise on the law enforcement training center. I'm satisfied with spending $6.2 million, but I wanted to solve this fire training need, and I believe we've solved it. And with that, I'm willing to concede my opinion on what is probably, in my personal opinion, is a solution that I would be willing to support, and move towards Wichita to get us on one page. And so I think it's appropriate at this time to go ahead and accept their idea and accept their position on the law enforcement training center. Both facilities are going to be fantastic. One already is there, and it's already fantastic. But I know that here, when we get the law enforcement training center operational, it's going to be wonderful. And so I think what we've done right now is we've created partnerships with Wichita in 2 areas to enhance our public safety, and it's a tremendous accomplishment, I think, to see 2 areas fixed. 2 areas that we can say we're working with Wichita, providing the very best we possibly can for our public safety service personnel. And they need it and they deserve it, and I'm glad we got it done. And although I got criticized by many folks for bringing up this fire district training issue, I got criticized by a lot of people. I hope they would agree with me that to more fully utilize a taxpayer-owned resource that enhances the public safety of our firefighters and the public is a good thing to do. And I think we were able to make that case, and we were able to get Wichita to see that point, and they voted for it yesterday, 7-0. So I'm proud of that, and I think we did the right thing. I've talked plenty long, so I want to go ahead and move forward. I see any other discussion by the commissioners before we vote? I see none. Madam Clerk, we have a motion and a second. Please call the vote.
Commissioner Unruh.
Aye.
Commissioner Norton.
Aye.
Commissioner Peterjohn.
Aye.
Commissioner Ranzau.
Aye.
Chairman Howell.
Aye.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for that. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Item L, report of the Board of Bids and Contracts regular meeting on May 12th, 2016.
Joe Thomas again. The meeting of the Board of Bids and Contracts of May 12th results in 4 items for your consideration. Item number 1 is the Sedgwick County Work Release, Master Control, Parking Lot, and ADA upgrades for the Facilities Department. Recommendation is to accept the base bid with alternates 1 and 4 in the amount of $917,000 and establish the unit pricing for wheel stops as listed. from Walls, Harmon, Huffman Construction, Incorporated. Item number 2 is point-to-point connections and internet access for the Division of Information and Operations. And this recommendation is to accept the low bid from Level 3 Communications Incorporated for an estimated monthly cost of $5,801.83 for 60 months, making the total $348,109.80. Item number 3 is the on-call tornado siren maintenance and repair for emergency management. This recommendation is to accept the proposal from Phillips Southern Electric and to establish contract pricing as shown for 3 years with 2 one-year options to renew. And our last item, item 4, is the on-call translation services for various departments. This recommendation is to accept the proposals from Bridging the Gap Interpreting, LLC, All World Language Consultants Incorporated, J. Rivera Associates Incorporated, Foreign Language Interpreter Services Incorporated, and Proprio Languages Services for the items 1 through 3, and Interlingual Services for items 1 and 4, and Reliable Interpretations and Translations for item 1 only. And to establish contract pricing for these listed for 3 years with 2 one-year options to renew. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have, and I recommend approval of these items.
All right, Commissioners, any questions on the bidding boards of contracts?
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the recommendations of the Board of Bids and Contracts.
Second.
All right, any other discussion? My only comment would be $917,000 for parking blocks. That is a lot of money. That's a lot of parking blocks.
Well, it's not just parking blocks. There's other items.
There's other items on there.
Yes, sir. Master control, parking lot, and ADA upgrades. No, if it was just the parking blocks, yeah, I would.
Yeah, I was focused on the parking blocks. I didn't get past to the next point there.
Yes, sir.
Wow, that's a lot of money. I started looking at this closely. All right. Well, thank you for the explanation there. Let me look at that for just a moment here. I guess to me the graph is a little bit difficult to interpret here, but can you go over the items again one more time for me?
For item number 1, sir?
Yes, please.
Okay. To break it down, there's the base bid, which is $859,000. The alternate number 1 is the ADA holding cell improvements, $25,000. Alternate 4 are the floor improvements in dormitories at $33,000. And then the contract pricing is as wheel stops are needed, they're just at $44 each.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Wow, that helps a lot.
Yeah.
All right. Well, any other discussion from commissioners? All right. Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Commissioner Unruh.
Aye.
Commissioner Norton.
Aye.
Commissioner Peterjohn.
Aye.
Commissioner Ranzau.
Aye.
Chairman Howell.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Consent agenda.
Commissioner Ranzau.
Well, Mr. Chairman.
I'm sorry.
Mike Scholes, County Manager, recommend you approve consent agenda items, Mike, through uniform.
All right. Thank you. Commissioner Ranzau.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion that we approve the consent agenda items except for item P.
Okay.
I'm sorry, except for item.
Item P, Papa.
P, okay.
Okay. So motion to accept all the items on the consent agenda except for item P.
I'll second that. I do want to have a quick comment.
Yes, sir. Commissioner Peterjohn?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I noticed on the consent agenda were items M&N in terms of donations to Sedgwick County, and I think those always deserve some public recognition. And for the folks who, for whatever reason, decided to make a donation to Sedgwick County, it is much appreciated. Thank you.
Very good. Any other discussion? Okay, seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Commissioner Unruh.
Aye.
Commissioner Norton.
Aye.
Commissioner Peterjohn.
Aye.
Commissioner Ranzau.
Aye.
Chairman Howell.
Aye. All right, Madam Clerk, let's talk about item P now.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Mr. Manager, or maybe our legal counsel, I'm wanting, I had intended to send an email to check into this and never got around to it. What exactly, why are we doing what we're doing with item P on this security purchase agreement?
Commissioner Ranzau, the action to this amendment only extends the contract period to a point in time when either party decides to cancel with a 60-day notice.
What's the current contract call for?
Current contract, it was a 2-year term, and so instead of extending for another 2-year term, this gives it an open-ended term.
Okay. For the record, I prefer to keep it the way it is. So I will oppose this.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, what's the will of the board?
I'd move that we approve item P of the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, further discussion? Seeing none. Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Commissioner Unruh?
Aye.
Commissioner Norton?
Aye.
Commissioner Peterjohn?
Aye.
Commissioner Ranzau?
No.
Chairman Howell?
Aye. All right, thank you. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Legislative issues?
Commissioners, we did not talk about legislative issues last week because we didn't really have any time with the long meeting that we had last week. Does anybody have any legislative issues for this week? Would you like to tell us what's going on, Mr. Von Atchen?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I hadn't heard prior to the meeting, but I decided I'd come in anyway, just in case there was something the Commission wanted to talk about. Right now, the priority, what we're looking at is pieces of legislation that take effect July 1 that affect the county. There is a new policy that I will be discussing with you individually next week, or a new statute regarding KORA and the expansion of what the definition of public record is. We'll be discussing that with you and then discussing the possibility of potentially putting some policy changes in place that will address a rather tricky subject of private email, private social accounts, private phones, and how we can comply with our core obligations when we don't control that information. Additionally, I know it's been a hot topic as well. We're working on revising our concealed carry policy to incorporate the statutory changes. I know the chairman to speak on television on Friday regarding that issue. We will have something before you in June that will comply with statutory change July 1. I stand for any other questions about any other pieces of legislation.
Any questions from commissioners? I don't have any questions for you right now. I would like to say that I have scheduled a special BOCC meeting for Thursday, May the 26th at 1:30 p.m. That's an opportunity for our lobbyists to come in and give us a briefing. And the reason I did that was because we canceled the staff meeting this next week. So I'll be in Tulsa. And the following week is a holiday. And so by the time we get around to having him come in, it would be about a month out. So I thought we would need to go ahead and get that done sooner than later. So I've asked for a special meeting. So nobody else needs to come necessarily other than, I'm sure you want to be there. A manager, I'm sure, would be there. But it's an open meeting. Anybody's welcome to come. But it would be a meeting for us to hear from our lobbyists in terms of what they did this last session overall, the successes, and maybe where we're at with some of the legislative issues that we've identified. So wanted to at least announce that. Any other discussion on legislative issues? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move on to the next item.
Thank you, Mr.
Next
Chairman.
item, please.
Other?
All right. Commissioners, any comments for other today? Commissioner Peterjohn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Last week, last Thursday to be more specific, Mayor Bentley, Mayor Satterwhite had this kind of a state of the city review and talking about some of the challenges their community was facing, and I went out and attended that meeting, and I appreciate also other county staff who were out there for it. Of course, obviously we've had discussions concerning they have their own volunteer fire department that operates kind of under the help and assistance of Fire District Number 1, and public safety issues are important, as well as public works and related issues for their community, and that was part of the challenge last week. So I wanted to get that on the record. It's an area of discussion and concern going forward, and I'd be happy to go into more detail if anyone has an interest in the challenges that area in the north part of the county in Eagle Township is struggling with. Mr. Chairman, I'd also be remiss if I did not point out that May 18th is a very important day in United States history. In May 18th, 1896, the U.S. Supreme Court issued one of their most awful decisions, Plessy versus Ferguson. And that basically allowed the policy of separate but equal and created the legal environment to allow segregation that occurred in a large part of the country in the latter part of the 19th, and of course became federal policy in the early part of the 20th century under President Wilson. And what's interesting is that one historical fact from that important event, there was one dissenting vote on the U.S. Supreme Court in that case. John Marshall Harlan was the dissenting vote. And one thing I've learned that I did not realize about Harlan was not only in his dissent, but he had been at one point in time a slave owner. And so I thought it was very interesting that his dissent and his role that he played, and of course it was quoted quite often, played a major role going forward. On May 18th, in 1908, U.S. Congress added "In God We Trust" to appear on American coinage. And an important event, May 18th, that I remember, and I think a few folks in this room may remember, an event occurred that cost 57 lives in 1980 when Mount St. Helens erupted. And anyone who has access to the internet can easily look up the video of that incredible explosion from Mother Nature that had a huge impact in the northwest part of our country. So May 18th is an important day in American history. Wanted to just point that out, along with all the other events on this date. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, any other comments from commissioners? I just wanted to make one point that I failed to say earlier. When I was talking about the fire district, I wanted to also point out one other piece of evidence that I think is important. That is that the fire district had on their own been working on a partnership with other interested parties trying to find a plan B. They were working on facility design and location, that they had hoped that they would be able to develop a place for them to train. And that was, again, so again, if they didn't believe that there was a need for that, they would not have developed that on their own. So just a piece of evidence I think is important for the public to know. So I do, again, I believe that this is a topic that came to us. I'm glad we solved it. It wasn't one that we made up. It wasn't one that did not need to be solved. So anyway, with that, I don't have anything else, I don't believe, for today. Mr. Manager, anything else that you need to?
That's it.
We don't have an executive session. We don't have a fire district meeting today, so we're going to go ahead and I guess we'll say that's done. We're adjourned. Thanks. Thank you, everybody.
Production and broadcast costs for Sedgwick County Commission meetings have been underwritten by Sedgwick County.